Welcome to Learning English from People.
Bob Marley, a voice against Babylon. Imagine a man whose life was a single, powerful question. He was a man born between two worlds. From his very first breath, he felt like an outsider. His question was this: in a world full of oppression, poverty, and division, a world he would come to call Babylon, how can we find true freedom? The answer he discovered did not come from politics or books. It came through a rhythm, a heartbeat that rose from the soil of his small island. It came through a voice that was both sad and strong, a voice that carried a message of rebellion, love, and spiritual liberation to every corner of the globe. This is the story of Bob Marley and his lifelong quest to answer that question, not just for himself, but for everyone who would listen. His journey began in a place that seemed far from the troubles of the world. He was born Robert Nesta Marley on February 6, 1945, in the quiet, green hills of 9 Mile, Jamaica. But even in this peaceful setting, he was different. His mother, Cedella, was a young black Jamaican woman. His father, Norval Marley, was a much older white Jamaican of English descent. Norval was a distant figure, mostly absent from his son's life, and he died when Bob was only 10. From a young age, Bob was seen as a half-caste, a boy who didn't fully belong to the black world or the white world. This feeling of being an outsider was the first seed of his life's mission. It planted in him a deep desire for a unity that could overcome lines of race and color. The real world, the world of Babylon, crashed into his life when he was 12. His mother moved them from the countryside to the city of Kingston, into a government housing project called Trenchtown. The name itself sounded like a battle. Trenchtown was a world of tin shacks, deep poverty, and daily struggle. But it was also a place of incredible energy and creativity. It was a place where survival depended on community, and where music was the air that people breathed. In Trenchtown, Bob found his tribe. He reconnected with his childhood friend, Bunny Wailer, and they soon met the tall, fiery Peter Tosh. The three boys shared a deep love for music. They listened to American rhythm and blues on the radio and practiced singing harmonies for hours in the shared yards of the neighborhood. A local musician named Joe Higgs became their teacher, showing Bob how to play the guitar and teaching them how to blend their voices. They called themselves the Wailers, a name that perfectly captured the cries and sorrows of the ghetto they came from. They were just teenagers with a dream, but their voices held the power of their experience. In 1964, that power exploded onto the Jamaican music scene. The Wailers recorded a song called Simmer Down. It was a fast, energetic ska track with a direct message to the violent, rude boys of Kingston: cool down, stop the fighting. The song became a massive #1 hit in Jamaica. Suddenly, the boys from Trenchtown were stars on their home island. They had found their first tool in the fight against Babylon: the power of music to speak directly to the people. But the fight required more than just a tool. It required a philosophy, a spiritual map. Bob Marley found his map in the mid-1960s. After a brief and difficult period working in a factory in America, an experience that showed him the cold heart of the Western system, he returned to Jamaica a changed man. He was drawn to the teachings of Rastafari. Rastafari was a spiritual movement that had grown in Jamaica. Its followers believed that Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia was a living god, whom they called Jah. They preached black pride, a deep connection to Africa, and a rejection of the corrupt, materialistic world of Babylon. For Bob, a man who had always felt like he didn't belong, Rastafari gave him a powerful sense of identity. It told him that he was a child of Africa, a spiritual warrior. He embraced the faith completely. He began to grow his famous dreadlocks and adopted a vegetarian diet. This spiritual awakening transformed his music. His songs were no longer just about life in the ghetto. They became prayers, protests, and prophecies. The music itself was also changing. The fast beat of ska slowed down into a cooler, more patient rhythm called rocksteady, which then evolved into the deep, hypnotic, bass-driven sound of reggae. Reggae was the perfect vehicle for his message. It was a sound you could feel in your chest, a rhythm that made you want to move, and a space for lyrics that could carry deep meaning. The Wailers' collaboration with the brilliant and wild producer Lee "Scratch" Perry pushed their sound even further, making it darker, more spiritual, and more powerful than ever before. By the early 1970s, the Wailers had conquered Jamaica. But Bob Marley's mission was bigger than one island. The question of freedom was a question for the whole world. The breakthrough came in 1972. The Wailers were in London, feeling stranded and without money. In a bold move, they walked into the offices of Island Records and met its founder, Chris Blackwell. Blackwell was a white Jamaican who understood the island's music. He saw something special in Marley, a rebel spirit with the charisma of a rock star. He gave them something no reggae band had ever received before, an advance to record a full, high-quality album. The result was Catch a Fire, released in 1973. Blackwell packaged it for a global rock audience with a now famous album cover shaped like a Zippo lighter. A second album, Burnin', followed that same year. It included a song that would change everything, I Shot the Sheriff. When the British rock legend Eric Clapton covered the song, it became a #1 hit in America. The world was suddenly paying attention. People everywhere were asking, who is Bob Marley? This global attention, however, came at a price. The intense focus on Bob as the frontman created tension within the band. Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer felt that Blackwell was trying to water down their raw reggae sound and spiritual message for a Western audience. The pressures of international touring were also immense. In 1974, the original Wailers, the brotherhood forged in the yards of Trenchtown, broke up. It was a painful end to a powerful chapter. But Bob's mission could not be stopped. He rebuilt the band as Bob Marley and the Wailers, with a new rhythm section and a trio of female harmony singers called the I3s, which included his wife, Rita Marley. The sound was richer and more soulful. In 1975, the album Live was released. It featured a version of No Woman, No Cry that captured the incredible energy of his concerts. The sound of the crowd singing along with every word was electric. It showed the deep connection he had built with his audience. He was no longer just a singer. He was the leader of a global movement, a voice for a tribe of people who felt like outsiders, just as he once had. As his influence grew around the world, it became even more powerful back home in Jamaica. But his home was in trouble. The country was on the edge of a civil war. Two political parties were fighting for control, and their supporters, armed with guns, turned the ghettos of Kingston into battlegrounds. In this dangerous climate, Bob Marley's message of peace and unity made him a target. He was seen as a man who could influence the people, a man with real power. In December 1976, he agreed to play at a free concert called the Smile Jamaica Concert, an event meant to calm the political violence. 2 days before the show, Babylon fought back. Gunmen stormed his home while he and his band were rehearsing. In the chaos, Bob was shot in the arm. His wife Rita was shot in the head, and his manager was seriously injured. It was a clear attempt to silence him. But you cannot silence a prophet with a bullet. 2 days later, injured and defiant, Bob Marley walked onto the stage at the Smile Jamaica concert in front of 80,000 people. He couldn't play his guitar, but he sang with more passion and fire than ever before. At the end of his performance, he opened his shirt to show the crowd his wounds. It was a powerful act of courage, a message to the gunmen and to the world. You cannot stop the music. You cannot stop the message. After the attack, Bob left Jamaica and went into exile in London. This period away from home was one of the most creative of his life. The trauma of the shooting and his reflections on his global role fueled his next album, Exodus. Released in 1977, it was a masterpiece. It had powerful anthems about movement and freedom, like the title track, and beautiful songs of love and faith, like One Love, People Get Ready. Time magazine would later call it the best album of the 20th century. He returned to Jamaica in 1978 for another historic event, the One Love Peace Concert. The political violence was even worse than before. In the middle of the concert, in a moment that has become legendary, Bob Marley did something extraordinary. He called the two rival political leaders, Michael Manley and Edward Seaga, onto the stage. As the band played, he took both of their hands and held them up together, a symbol of the unity he had been singing about for years. For a moment, the music had created a fragile peace. His mission continued to expand. He became a powerful voice for African liberation. His 1979 album Survival was a celebration of Pan-African unity. In 1980, he received one of the greatest honors of his life, an invitation to perform at the official independence ceremony for the new nation of Zimbabwe. It was a dream come true, a moment where his songs of freedom were the soundtrack to real-world liberation. His final studio album, Uprising, was released that same year. It contained some of his most profound songs, including the one that serves as the final answer to his life's question. The song was Redemption Song. Playing just his acoustic guitar, he sang a message that was simple and direct. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. That was it. That was the secret. True freedom wasn't something a politician or a government could give you. It was something you had to find inside yourself. But as Bob Marley reached the peak of his spiritual and artistic power, his body was in a silent battle. In 1977, doctors had found a malignant melanoma, a form of skin cancer, under the nail of his big toe. They recommended amputating the toe, but he refused. For a Rasta, the body is a temple that should not be cut. As a performer whose energy on stage was legendary, he could not imagine being unable to move and dance. He kept his illness a secret and continued to tour with incredible energy. But in September 1980, after 2 sold-out shows in New York City, his health collapsed. The cancer had spread to his brain, lungs, and liver. He performed his last concert in Pittsburgh, giving everything he had left to his audience. After seeking treatment at a special clinic in Germany, he knew his time was running out. He wanted to die at home in Jamaica, but he was too weak to make the final journey. On May 11, 1981, Robert Nesta Marley died in a hospital in Miami. He was only 36 years old. His last words to his son Ziggy were a final piece of wisdom from his long journey. Money can't buy life. Jamaica mourned him like a king. His legacy, however, had only just begun. His greatest hits collection, Legend, became the best-selling reggae album of all time, and it has never stopped selling. His face is now one of the most recognizable in the world, printed on posters and T-shirts as a global symbol of peace, rebellion, and good vibes. Some say this has softened his image, that people have forgotten the fire of the man from Trenchtown, the revolutionary who challenged the system. But the core of his message can never be diluted. Bob Marley gave a voice to people who had no voice. He took the specific struggles and spirituality of his small island and turned them into a universal language. He was a complex man, a prophet of peace who survived an assassination attempt, a spiritual leader with a complicated personal life, a man who sang of one love but fought fiercely on the football field. Through all the contradictions, his music remained a pure and powerful force. It was the answer to the question that began his journey. He proved that even if you are born an outsider, even if you face the violence and pressure of Babylon, you can free your mind. And in doing so, you can help free the world. His voice is gone, but his answer echoes forever in his songs, a timeless call for us to stand up, to unite, and to never stop fighting for our own redemption.